Book 'em, Dano. 5 words. That's all it took to make an entire generation snap to attention. Hawaii. 5-0 wasn't just a cop show, it was a tidal wave in prime time. 12 seasons, 279 episodes, a theme song so iconic it still shows up at football games 50 years later. But behind the badge, behind the beaches, behind that perfectly pressed suit, Jack Lord never once took off. There was something darker brewing. Political pressure, blacklists. A lead actor so controlling, he made studio executives physically leave the room. Real criminals on set. And a finale so botched, the cast found out it was canceled the same way you find out your flight is delayed. At the last possible second with no apology. These are 20 dark facts about Hawaii 5-0. And trust me, some of these make the criminals look like the reasonable ones. Hi, my name is Jerry, and this is Film Noir. Let's get into it. Number 1. Before a single frame was shot, before Jack Lord ever squinted at a suspect across a Honolulu interrogation table, the show nearly died in a committee room on the mainland. Network executives at CBS weren't sold. They liked the concept, a state police procedural set in Hawaii, but they didn't love the budget. Filming on location in Hawaii wasn't cheap in 1968. It wasn't cheap in any year, ending in any number. The flights, the permits, the local crews, the heat-destroying equipment that wasn't built for tropical humidity. Executives pushed hard for a compromise. Shoot the interiors in Los Angeles, fake the exteriors with stock footage and palm tree backdrops, and call it a day. Producer Leonard Freeman said absolutely not, since his argument was simple and borderline poetic. Hawaii isn't a backdrop, it's a character. You can't fake it. You can't slap a lei on a Burbank soundstage and expect audiences to believe it. Freeman dug in, fought hard, and CBS eventually blinked. The show would film in Hawaii, all of it. That one stubborn decision changed American television history. Without it, 5-0 is just another cop show in a beige hallway. With it, it became something nobody had ever seen before. Number 2. Jack Lord didn't just play Steve McGarrett. He became him in a way that blurred every line between performance and personality, and not always in a good way. From the very first season, Lord negotiated a level of creative control that was almost unheard of for a television actor in 1968. He had script approval, he had casting input. Thus, he had wardrobe sign-off, which explains why McGarrett always looked like he was dressed for a funeral at a yacht club. But Lord didn't stop there. He reportedly reviewed dailies obsessively, demanded reshoots for scenes he felt were off, and clashed with directors who dared to frame a shot in a way he didn't approve. Multiple directors who cycled through the show over the years described the experience in terms that ranged from challenging to career-defining trauma. One crew member, speaking years later without naming names, said working on 5-0 under Lord was like working for a man who believed he was the show, the studio, and the network simultaneously. And here's the unsettling part. He wasn't entirely wrong. Without Lord, there was no 5-0. He knew it. CBS knew it. And that power never, not once in 12 seasons, went unexercised.
A hitman hired to kill another hitman now.
Steve, we knew Farico was hired to kill Contreras.
Number 3. The theme song. That relentless brass-heavy 4-note eruption that still detonates in your brain the second someone mentions the show. It was composed by Morton Stevens, a CBS staff arranger who was handed a basic brief and told to write something that felt big, tropical, and urgent. Stevens didn't just write big, he wrote immortal. The opening riff became one of the most recognized television themes in history, eventually covered by everyone from surf rock bands to symphony orchestras. It charted on the Billboard Hot 100. It won an Emmy. Here's the dark footnote though. Stevens was a staff employee at the time, meaning CBS owned the composition outright. He received a flat fee, standard for the era, and watched for decades as the theme generated millions in licensing revenue, sync deals, it was sample clearances, and commercial placements. Stevens continued working in television scoring until his death in 1991, never receiving royalties proportional to what that theme actually earned. It's one of those Hollywood stories where the talent creates something timeless and the institution collects forever. Morton Stevens wrote the soundtrack to an era and got a staff paycheck for it. That's not just art. That's the music industry in a 4-bar nutshell. Number 4. Here's one that doesn't show up in the press kits. During the early seasons of filming in Honolulu, the production operated in a city that still carried deep, complicated wounds from its history as a military and colonial hub. The show depicted Hawaii as a paradise occasionally interrupted by crime, clean streets, beautiful coastlines, a competent white authority restoring order. But local Hawaiian residents and Native Hawaiian activists saw something else entirely. They saw their home used as an exotic setting, while their culture was reduced to decoration, grass skirts in the background, tiki torches on the lanai, the occasional pidgin-speaking local playing a low-level criminal. Hawaiian advocacy groups formally complained during the show's run that 5-0 consistently cast Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders in subordinate or criminal roles while placing white mainland actors in positions of power and intelligence. The production did hire local crew and supporting cast, and it genuinely boosted Hawaii's economy and tourism. But the cultural criticism was real, documented, and largely ignored by a network that was too busy cashing in on the ratings to examine what the show was actually saying about the place it was exploiting for scenery.
Got the whole area covered.
I'm wondering if we need this setup, Steve. We've got to...
Number 5. McGarrett's nemesis, the shadow villain. The recurring antagonist who gave 5-0 its most serialized, almost novelistic storyline across 12 seasons. Wo Fat, played by Keeg Dieg, was the show's version of Moriarty, a Chinese master criminal and communist agent whose chess match with McGarrett defined the show's mythology. But here's where it turns uncomfortable quickly. Dha was not Chinese. He was of Egyptian, Sudanese, and British descent, and was born in Spring Lake, New Jersey. And he played a villainous Asian mastermind for 12 years, based entirely on his exotic bone structure and the casting assumptions of an era that genuinely did not see a problem with any of this. The character of Wo Fat drew on decades of Fu Manchu-style yellow peril tropes, the inscrutable, dangerous, communist Asian threatening Western order. Critics and scholars of Asian American representation have written extensively about Wo Fat as a textbook example of how 1960s and 70s television codified racial fear into entertainment. The show never interrogated the character through that lens. Dieg, to his credit, brought genuine menace and intelligence to the role, but the template he was handed was built on something ugly, and nobody at CBS in 1968 lost a single night's sleep over it.
Your luck ran out?
No man is perfect, Mr. McGarrett.
Number 6. Okay, pause. I have to tell you something, because this next one genuinely stopped me when I first read it, and I need a second to process it out loud with you. Ready? The state of Hawaii, the actual government of a United States state, actively cooperated with the production specifically because the show made their island look like a place where crime was handled swiftly and authority was competent and trustworthy. The Hawaii state government provided logistical support, location access, and official cooperation throughout the series, which sounds fine on the surface. Tourism dollars, positive representation, everybody wins. Except the Hawaii Police Department was, during this same era, dealing with documented allegations of corruption, civil rights violations, and misconduct that bore absolutely no resemblance to the clean, principled, E.S. McGarrett-style law enforcement being broadcast into 60 million American living rooms every week. The show was essentially state-sponsored myth-making. Hawaii got a glossy commercial. The network got cheap production cooperation. And the reality of policing in 1970s Hawaii. Complex, imperfect, sometimes brutal, stayed comfortably off camera, buried under another perfect sunset and another triumphant Bookum Dano. Number 7. Jack Lord's relationship with his co-star James MacArthur, Danny Dano Williams, was professional, distant, and by most accounts, quietly miserable for MacArthur throughout the later years. MacArthur was the son of the legendary playwright Charles MacArthur and actress Helen Hayes, Hollywood royalty by birth and genuinely talented by his own right. And he joined 5-0 expecting a collaborative television experience. What he got was 12 seasons of playing second violin in an orchestra, where the first chair didn't acknowledge anyone else on stage. Multiple interviews given by MacArthur after leaving the show paint a picture of a working relationship, defined by Lord's total dominance. Lord reportedly didn't socialize with the cast. He didn't do group dinners, didn't hang around set between scenes, didn't engage in the normal camaraderie that makes a long-running production survivable. MacArthur quietly left the show after season 10, citing a desire to pursue other projects. He never spoke in explicitly bitter terms publicly, which is either extraordinary professionalism or the behavior of a man who processed everything privately and was simply done. He stopped being Dano. Lord barely acknowledged the departure. The show continued. That silence says everything the press junket never would.
A couple of stewardesses help us move in.
You guys aren't supposed to be having too much fun on this detail.
Number 8. The filming locations were paradise on camera and a logistical nightmare off it. Hawaii in the late 1960s and through the 1970s had infrastructure limitations that a major network television production constantly bumped against. Equipment corroded faster in the salt air. Shipping anything to the islands, specialized camera gear, replacement parts, post-production materials, took time and money that the mainland productions never had to budget for. But the darkest infrastructural story from the 5-0 set involves a specific period during the early 70s, when the production's relationship with local labor unions deteriorated badly. There were disputes over hiring practices, over wages, over whether mainland crew members were being brought in for jobs that local workers could perform. The tensions weren't always loud, but they were persistent, and they reflected a broader economic reality. A television production was extracting enormous value from a place, while the question of how much of that value stayed in the community remained genuinely contentious. Hawaii 5-0 was good for Hawaii's image. Whether it was equally good for Hawaii's working people is a question the show's legacy rarely pauses to ask. I'm asking it. I don't have a clean answer. Neither did anyone in the production office. Number 9. Lord's control extended beyond the set in ways that crossed into genuinely alarming territory. By the mid-70s, multiple accounts from cast and crew suggest that Lord had effectively created a closed, self-referential working environment where loyalty to him personally was an unspoken job requirement. People who questioned his decisions, pushed back on his notes, or, worse, showed signs of becoming too popular with the audience, found their roles quietly diminished. Guest stars who received strong audience response sometimes weren't invited back. Writers whose scripts earned particular praise reportedly found subsequent pitches cold-shouldered. Whether this was conscious strategy or the natural behavior of an extraordinarily insecure man who happened to have enormous power is a matter of interpretation. What isn't a matter of interpretation is that the show's creative atmosphere, and by most accounts from those who worked it, was not one of collaboration and celebration. It was one of managed hierarchy with Lord at the absolute top, Dawn and everyone else operating in careful awareness of that hierarchy at all times. Television is full of difficult stars. Lord, by multiple accounts, belonged in a specific tier of difficult that most people in the industry quietly agreed was exceptional.
Continued good health, Mr. K.
Number 10. The finale. Oh, the finale. After 12 seasons, 279 episodes, and one of the longest runs in American television history, Hawaii 5-0 deserved an ending. It did not get one. The show was canceled by CBS in 1980 without the production being given adequate notice to craft a proper series conclusion. The cast and core crew reportedly learned the cancellation was final, with almost no runway to prepare. What aired as the series finale, an episode titled Woe to Woo Fat, was the show's attempt to hastily construct closure around McGarrett finally catching his arch-nemesis after 12 years of pursuit. The execution was rushed, the resolution felt hollow, and the emotional payoff that 12 seasons of build-up deserved simply wasn't there. Jack Lord reportedly was furious, which is notable because Lord being furious was, by that point, not exactly a weather event anyone in the building felt the need to document. He had wanted to end the show on his own terms, at a time of his choosing, with a finale worthy of the mythology he'd spent over a decade building. CBS handed him a canceled flight and a courtesy voucher. And McGarrett, after 12 years of hunting, he caught his man in an episode that felt like it was written during the commercial break. Book 'em? Barely. Number 11. Jack Lord disappeared after Hawaii 5-0 ended, and not in the graceful, selective retirement way that aging stars sometimes manage with dignity intact. He vanished. After 1980, Lord made virtually no public appearances, gave no interviews, and accepted no roles. The man who had dominated CBS primetime for 12 seasons simply ceased to exist as a public figure. For years, fans assumed it was pride, a man who had been the center of everything, refusing to exist on the margins. The truth was harder. Lord had been quietly battling the early stages of what his wife Marie later confirmed was a progressive neurological condition, likely Alzheimer's disease, that began its erosion sometime in the mid-1980s. Marie Lord became his full-time caregiver and fierce protector, controlling all access and deflecting every inquiry with the kind of loyalty that is either beautiful or heartbreaking, depending on which side of the door you're standing on. Lord spent his final years in Honolulu, the city he had made famous, largely unknown to the tourists walking past his building. He died in 1998. The obituaries were respectful. The silence that followed was enormous. Hawaii 5-0 ran for 12 seasons, and its star spent his last 18 years erased from the world he built. That's not a Hollywood ending. That's just what time does when it's finished being polite. Number 12. The show's production offices weren't just where scripts got written and schedules got managed. During certain periods in the late 1960s and early 1970s, they were apparently where actual intelligence filtered through. Hawaii's strategic military position during the Cold War made the islands a genuine hub of Pacific intelligence activity, and 5-0's access to government facilities and official cooperation meant the production occasionally brushed up against things that weren't meant for public entertainment. Several crew members from the era, speaking in later interviews and documented accounts, described moments where certain script storylines involving communist infiltration, Pacific espionage routes, and military intelligence procedures were quietly flagged by government contacts and asked to be softened, redirected, or dropped entirely. The network complied without resistance or public disclosure. Nobody announced that an episode had been altered at federal request. It just happened. In Maine, the script changed and the episode aired in a different form than originally written. This wasn't unique to 5-0. Cold War-era television had a complicated relationship with government influence across dozens of productions. But a show explicitly built around state authority fighting communist villains was perhaps more susceptible to that influence than most. The line between entertainment and propaganda is thinner than the badge McGarrett kept polished on his lapel. Number 13. Here is a fact I want you to sit with for a moment before moving on. Hawaii 5-0 ran for 12 seasons without a single series regular who was native Hawaiian in a leading role. The show was set entirely in Hawaii. It derived its entire identity, its visual language, its exotic appeal, its tourism commercial energy from Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian geography. And for 12 seasons, the face of authority, intelligence, and moral order on that show was a pale, square-jawed man from New York named Jack Lord. I'm not editorializing here. I'm describing what the screen showed, episode after episode, year after year. The local Hawaiian actors who appeared regularly did so in supporting capacities. The culture was present as atmosphere. The people were present as background. The ongoing academic and cultural critique of 5-0 from native Hawaiian scholars focuses specifically on this erasure, the way the show participated in a broader pattern of treating Hawaii as a location to be used rather than a community to be represented. The 2010 reboot attempted to address this by including Hawaiian and Asian American leads. The fact that it was framed as progress tells you everything you need to know about how low the original bar was sitting. Number 14. Leonard Freeman, the show's creator and the man whose stubbornness put the production in Hawaii in the first place, died in January 1974 after suffering a heart attack. He was 59 years old and did not live to see the show reach its conclusion. Freeman had been the creative conscience of 5-0 from the beginning, the person who understood what the show was supposed to be, who fought for its integrity against network pressure, who maintained whatever equilibrium existed between Lord's control impulses and the collaborative needs of a functioning production. After Freeman's death, that equilibrium dissolved. The accounts from cast and crew members who worked both the Freeman era and the post-Freeman era describe a noticeable shift in the show's atmosphere. Lord's authority, previously checked at least partially by Freeman's presence, expanded to fill every available space. The show continued for 6 more years, but the internal culture changed in ways that were felt daily on set. Freeman's death wasn't just the loss of a showrunner, it was the removal of the last structural counterweight to a star who had been waiting. Perhaps without even realizing it, for there to be nothing left between him and total control. The show outlived its conscience by 6 seasons. Number 15. McGarrett never had a consistent, developed romantic relationship across 12 seasons. For a leading man on a primetime drama running from 1968 to 1980, that's genuinely unusual. The explanation the show always offered was devotion to duty. McGarrett was married to the job, too consumed by justice to sustain personal intimacy, which is a fine dramatic choice made once. Made consistently for 12 years, it starts to feel less like character design and more like active avoidance. Scholars of television history and gender representation have written about McGarrett as an early example of a specific masculine archetype that American crime television would repeat obsessively for decades. The emotionally unavailable authority figure whose competence substitutes for humanity. More pointed criticism has noted that Lord himself was intensely private about his personal life throughout the run, and that the character's emotional architecture sometimes seemed to mirror the actor's own carefully maintained distance from vulnerability. Lord was married to Marie Denard from 1947 until his death, a genuine partnership by all accounts. But McGarrett remained sealed, whether that was art reflecting life, life reflecting art, or simply a star controlling his character's emotional exposure the same way he controlled everything else on that production. Nobody left behind a clean answer. Number 16. The show inspired real copycat behavior, and that is not the fun, flattering kind of cultural impact anyone celebrates at a retrospective. During the 1970s, several documented cases emerged of criminals in Hawaii who had specifically studied 5-0 episodes to understand investigative procedures, response patterns, and the operational methods the show depicted with sometimes uncomfortable procedural specificity. This wasn't urban legend. Law enforcement officials in Hawaii made note of it. The show's obsession with authentic-feeling police procedure, its use of real locations and real institutional frameworks, meant that its depictions of how investigations worked were occasionally accurate enough to be instructive. One Hawaii law enforcement official reportedly described certain criminal methodologies encountered in the mid-1970s as 5-0 aware, meaning that the people committing the crimes had clearly watched enough episodes to know what to avoid and how. The show was so committed to verisimilitude that it accidentally produced a tutorial. CBS never addressed this publicly. The production never modified its approach to procedural detail as a result. The episodes kept airing, the reruns kept running, and somewhere out there, someone was taking notes during what everyone else thought was just entertainment. Number 17. The famous catchphrase, "Book 'em Dano," was never in the original series Bible, never scripted as a recurring device, and according to multiple production accounts, emerged almost accidentally in early episodes before audiences latched onto it with the kind of irrational collective affection that occasionally elevates a throwaway line into a cultural monument. What's darker and less celebrated is what James MacArthur said about the phrase in later interviews. He described it as a symbol of his character's functional role, the person who received the order, he who was permanently subordinate, who existed in the narrative to be directed rather than to direct. "Book 'em Dano" is a command every single time. 12 seasons of one man telling another man what to do, distilled into 4 words that America found charming and quotable. MacArthur was too professional to say he resented it outright, but he spoke about Dano's limited agency with a clarity that suggested he had spent considerable time thinking about what it meant to be the person those words were always aimed at. The catchphrase made MacArthur famous. It also defined the absolute ceiling of his character's existence. He was always the one getting booked, never the one doing the booking. Number 18. Hawaii 5-0 was never nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Drama Series across its entire 12-season run. Not once. It was one of the most watched, most culturally impactful, longest-running dramas in American television history. And the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences looked at it for over a decade and consistently decided it didn't merit their top recognition. Jack Lord received individual acting nominations, and the show received technical nominations in various categories. But as a drama, as a piece of television, the industry never formally acknowledged it. The critical consensus during the show's run treated it as popular entertainment, solid, well-crafted, enormously successful, but not serious art. This was partly era-specific snobbery about genre television. Crime procedurals weren't considered prestige. Partly it was the show's own reluctance to take creative risks in its later seasons, playing it safe with a formula that worked commercially, but didn't challenge anyone aesthetically. And partly, if you read the trade press from the period honestly, it was the industry's complicated feelings about a show that had made a star so powerful, he was effectively ungovernable. Hollywood has always had ambivalent feelings about people who win too completely outside the established systems of approval. Number 19. The reboot that premiered in 2010 under the same title inherited the original's legacy and immediately began generating its own complications. The new show made genuine progress in representation. Leads included Korean-American actor Daniel Dae Kim and native Hawaiian actress Grace Park, which addressed the original's most glaring absences. But the reboot also surfaced something the original had buried: a pay equity scandal in 2017 when Daniel Dae Kim and Grace Park both departed the show after CBS reportedly refused to pay them salaries equal to their white co-stars Alex O'Loughlin and Scott Caan. The disparity wasn't subtle. Kim and Park were central, established cast members on a long-running hit, and the gap in their compensation compared to their co-stars was significant enough that both chose to leave rather than accept it. The story became a flashpoint in Hollywood's broader conversation about racial pay equity. The 1968 original had erased non-white faces from authority. The 2010 reboot put them there and then paid them less for the privilege. 50 years of American television history, and the same mountain in slightly different clothing. Enter Kim and Park left with grace and dignity. CBS issued statements. The show continued without them. Same as it ever was. Number 20. The city of Honolulu changed because of Hawaii 5.0, and not entirely in ways the show intended or anticipated. The tourism explosion that the series accelerated through the 1970s transformed Honolulu's economy, its real estate landscape, and its cultural character in ways that are still being reckoned with today. Hotel development accelerated along coastlines that had previously been accessible to local communities. Land values rose in ways that began displacing working-class Hawaiian families from neighborhoods the show had made internationally famous. The very beauty that 5.0 broadcast to 60 million weekly viewers became a commodity that the people who actually lived there could increasingly not afford to be near. Native Hawaiian scholars and community advocates have drawn direct lines between the show's role in manufacturing Hawaii's global tourism image and the economic displacement that followed. 5.0 didn't cause gentrification and displacement alone. Those forces have many fathers. But it was an extraordinarily effective marketing instrument for a version of Hawaii that served visitors and developers while the people whose ancestors built that culture watched the price of existing in it climb steadily beyond reach. The show closed every episode with justice restored. The city it filmed in is still working on that part.
No!
What's this all about?
Easy.
Bonus fact. After Jack Lord died in 1998, his estate donated a significant portion of his art collection. Lord was a serious trained painter, and personal assets to Hawaiian charities and cultural institutions. The man who had controlled everything, who had trusted almost no one, who had retreated from the world so completely that an entire generation forgot he was still alive, left his final act as an act of generosity toward the place that had defined his most famous chapter. The Honolulu art community received works and contributions that reflected a private interior life nobody on the 5.0 set would have recognized from the man-barking reshoot demands at directors. Lord had painted throughout his life with the same obsessive focus he brought to McGarrett. Landscapes, portraits, studies in light and shadow. The irony is almost too neat for a show called Film Noir. The most controlling man in American television spent his private hours making something he gave away. Hawaii got the paintings, We got 12 seasons and a theme song that still won't leave our heads. Honestly, that's not the worst deal anyone ever made. Book 'em.